little bit slow because they acquire hardware as it goes, but that's okay because sometimes it just takes a little bit longer.
No idea that was coming, so I was like, who, what, why, who?
Oh my god.
GM to our one active viewer this morning. Welcome to Game of Nodes, the podcast by validators and node operators and degens and fuckwits.
So did you guys even realize that the music was different?
I did. That's what I was saying.
Yeah,
It totally blew me off. I was like, what?
that is definitely going to get us like
I was
banned.
doing the Australian national anthem. It was actually
That's
I was
right.
hoping it would have been funny if Alex, if somebody else was here, but
Did you change the music, sir?
yeah. I even put it under the same name, like with intro, so nobody would recognize it. I did like the whole thing, and then I loved it.
I thought it was great. I enjoyed it.
However, will that just not get us a copyright
I'm
strike
sure it will.
every
I'm sure
single episode?
Yeah, nobody watches this. No, it's just only for today. It's only for today. It's only for number.
Oh,
99.
okay. Only for today. Oh, yeah,
Mhm.
number 99.
Mm-hmm.
If you're having chain problems, I feel bad for you, son. It's I like that. Who came up with that? Was that you or Alex?
Frey.
Oh, Frey.
We both did it.
Frey. You know that other guy?
We both did it. The other guy.
Yeah. Right. Well, fucking what has happened this week? I think oh man, it's busy at the moment. All the degens are out. Everything's like happening. All the test nets are going. Everyone wants
Test
to
nets are
do
going.
stuff all the time. Man, there's
Mm-hmm.
some of those test nets are busy. Some that can't be mentioned, but are busy. Lots of changes, lots of like tweaking, lots of try this, try that type action. What do you?
I think we can mention that one now. I think that's in the public.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we can mention anything about
We have
the
mentioned it, so
Yeah, I think we have.
well, maybe we shouldn't say any more
I think it's all good.
about
I think
that.
it's all good.
Yeah, I mean it's quite intense. There's a lot of so I kind of lose track of some of the changes just because there's like so many of them, and
Yeah.
occasionally I just go back to the default settings because they work.
Well, lately I've been taking like out of the announcements and like copying them, then putting them back into my individual channel with them, and just like saying it's done. Like because I need like a running tally of what's going on. I still put a little moniker on each of those so I have an understanding of it, so I know that it's done. But a lot of them look exactly the same, and some of those are like 20 minutes apart, right?
Well,
So
a lot of them are like
it's easy to get mixed up.
flip-flopping back and forth. Like they'll say, "Oh,
Yeah,
go to this number, then go to that number, then go to this number." You're like, "Fucking hell, man!"
Yeah,
Well,
that's what I use my little icon for. If it's tagged, then I've done it. It's good.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, that's been like, I know it looks cocky maybe in those types of things or whatever, but it's really for me.
Yeah, that
not for
is
anybody
exactly
else.
why I do it as well. My little
Yeah.
crown goes on anything that I've actioned.
Yeah, like it's really helpful because then I can go back and look and see what I fucked up.
So I always like to keep track of all of these things, even upgrades. Whenever there's the announcement,
Yeah.
I'll like read it in the morning when I wake up. I'll go through all of the Discord shit, right? And then as I go through it, anything that's like pertinent, I just mark as unread again, so I can action it when I get back to my computer.
Sure.
Or like when I get to my computer, because I read them all on my phone just to like get rid of all the chaff.
Kind of like unreading email and stuff like that. I do the same thing. Like I read it through.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, I
unread
need
because
that.
I need to go back and do something with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It sort of works. Discord's tough with that though, and you can't really do that in
It
Telegram.
is.
I don't think. Right? I don't think you can do that.
You can. Yeah,
I
I do that
you
Telegram for
can
sure.
mark
Yeah,
up
yeah.
red with TG. Yeah. Yeah, I mean lots of BD happens on TG. So
The BD and the TG.
yeah, I've been using
hate-
the folders a lot, like the little
I've been starting to too.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I've got like a folder called leads. So anyone who's like messaged me about some service or something, I just chuck them in there, and then makes it easier to follow up on.
Yeah.
I have a folder called Good GUD blokes.
Do you? It's cool.
Yeah, you're not in it.
It's okay. I'm okay with that. I always think about that actually because I do keep notes on like what's going on, but some of those like threads, it's like no different than any other BD thing where like you're waiting on me or I'm waiting on somebody else, right? And so it's not time for a CRM system, but I thought it might be something a little bit more formal than leads folders. You know what I mean? Because I might need a little bit more task management associated with some of those things, but we'll see.
Well, I know for a fact that Lavender L5 has some sort of tracking system for
Yeah.
BD.
Well, it's also different when you have multiple people too, because then you got to like then it's a collaboration tool as well, right? If it's just you, then it's whatever. But
we mostly just use Notion for it, and then like
Yeah.
basically a Jira board that tracks the status of things.
Yeah, a Kanban is a good idea actually, versus like like CRM. I don't want fucking pipelines and shit. I don't give a shit about that. But a simple Kanban, actually just showing am I waiting on something or somebody waiting on me or proposals or this or that that's probably a good start maybe.
The only problem
It's
is
honestly
with those
pretty
types of
effective.
things. Well, you have to manually update them though.
You do?
It's kind of a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Well, if you're if you don't have a team doing BD, it's a pain in the ass. Obviously, if you have a team, it's useful. If you don't, then it's just notes for yourself.
Yeah.
The
But
leads
still, like,
folder
it
works
still
just
helps.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah. But I used to use I forget what fucking tool we used to use that was like we got to put it in Jira. I could put it in GitHub or something too, I'm guessing. But we used to do fucking hell. There's like a free type of just simple Kanban tool that we used to use.
Trello?
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. Yeah, I used to use Trello.
Yep, I used to use Trello as well, but with multiple people, for some reason we had some issue with it and decided to, it was so that we could see the history of changes. Trello doesn't have the history of changes.
Oh yeah, an audit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why we ended up leaving that.
Trello.
Never
heard of it. Well, what's the big news this week? Stride has launched on DYDX, which is, that's not actually first in the news, but it's on my mind. So Stride finally launches ST-DYDX, the auto compounding USD swapping liquid asset with insane Stride incentives to attract liquidity. An airdrop of 150K to ST-DYDX holders. Whoa, much wow. So I didn't know that they were going to be doing the airdrop. I know that Schultze has comments on the Stride deployment for DYDX. I think we've talked about previously, Schultze.
Comments in what sense? What do you mean?
Well, we knew it was coming.
Yeah. 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 So we've talked previously about the whole, like swapping mechanism that they're using instead of just paying out DYDX. I made some on their forum post on DYDX when they were talking about it originally. I made a suggestion that maybe they have two products, one that compounds your DYDX by buying it with the USDC rewards, and another one that just distributes DYDX. But I guess that didn't distributes USDC, but I guess that didn't gain any traction. But nonetheless, it is launched as of, I believe, yesterday or the day before, just after the V3 upgrade proposed by KingNodes. Got my DYDX back, thank God.
Did you?
Yeah,
$6 grand in the wind or something.
Yeah, it's a bit hairy on DYDX because you've got. I mean, it's unlikely you're ever going to get vetoed on a upgrade proposal unless it's bad and you didn't realize. But yeah, I mean, just to like put 6K in the wind for a week is like, okay, that's fun.
All right.
But yeah, man, I'm a I'm a company man. I do what I'm told. So, but anyway, successful proposal, smooth upgrade. I did wake up for it, and I didn't have to do anything, which was nice. I think they did have a couple of operators who reported that they had some upgrade issues. Did either of you guys have any like stalled nodes or anything like that after the upgrade? I think I might have actually had to go back and restart one of my nodes sometime later.
I mean, it was smooth running for me.
Yeah,
I thought it was more. I thought the following jailings were way more entertaining. Like basically everything for V3 has lost my mind because the jailings drama has been like so succulent that it's held brain space for free.
So what was the juice in the post upgrade drama with the jailings?
There were, I think, 8 validators that were jailed from the upgrade, just because they just didn't do the upgrade. They didn't stage it, maybe, which also means, of course, that they don't have monitoring, so they didn't get wicked up for it.
Why would you?
Yeah, why would you have monitoring?
They look for the words like. They're all were they any of those Cosmos validators, or are they all like EVM, ERC20 type chain validators?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think there was.
Was there? I'd be surprised if there's Cosmos validator I missed it. Usually those are like other ones that like don't actually recognize that each upgrade like that is actually a hard fork. Because if they see the term hard fork, then they prep for it and usually get like 3 months of notice on those types of chains. But here you got 7 days, get it prepped, or you're gonna miss blocks, and then they don't even realize it. Although no monitoring is like, what the fuck is that? Like, that's ridiculous.
Okay, so there was definitely one that is a Cosmos native validator that got jailed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well done, team.
But is that a surprise to you about that jailing, or is it like, wow, 50-50?
About that one specifically? 50-50. I don't know that guy well enough to say that.
50-50.
Yeah, I mean, there's some 50-50 validators out there, you know what I mean? They're like, they might do it.
Maybe they'll make it. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
No, we didn't have any stalled nodes. I don't think anything. I don't really touch that. Actually, I think I staged it. I don't even remember. I mean, I know we got the notification for the possible stall, but no issues after that, I don't think.
I can't remember if that Save V2 upgrade was post last podcast or pre last podcast, but I know you, sir, and after seeing your tweet, I made a tweet about the actual reduction in thrash is amazing on that. That save. It's not the Save V2 upgrade. It's just the Save DB implementation, sort of on the way to Save V2. I think it's like part of the roadmap, and man, it had, like it's been fantastic.
Yeah, Pebble's something, man. This shit works.
Yeah, it's
which I think we knew from other chains too.
Pebble?
But they use Pebble. Yeah, it's Pebble backend for
Got it.
Not all the databases though. I don't know. You can get, when you look at the data folder after you make some transitions there, Schultze, you'll probably figure it out. But yeah, like it's been nice. It's been nice.
There's a bunch of different things going on there, and they've like broken up. So you can change, like they've added configurations, so you don't have to store certain things anymore. So what is it? They got the state store and the what was the other?
The state store and hold on, I'll tell you right now.
Yeah,
I'll tell you.
But as a validator, you sort of only need one of them, and then as a RPC provider, you need like both of them. But
that's right,
or the other one or something.
Yeah, you're correct. It's state commit, which you need, which defines the SADB should be enabled to override the existing IAVL database backend. And then there's state store. State store is not needed if you're a validator, which defines whether the state store should be enabled for storing historical data, supporting historical queries, or exporting state snapshots. Requires the setting to be true. So we run true on both, and then you can control. It shows like what the snapshot interval is on the state commit, and then on the state store, you can also control the keep recent. So we have all those set to 100,000 blocks, which I think I'd say is I don't even know how long that is. Which I could probably increase on both these because I mean, even I think I have a couple nodes that have been running for a while, and I think it doesn't even increase past like 160 gigs, maybe something like that. I have to look and
Really?
see. Yeah, I
Wow.
think because I mean, honestly, this is the first time I've ever run pruning on Say because in the old IAVL days, I never pruned. Like it just didn't like it always.
Too much overhead, right?
I just didn't want that overhead and those spikes, and we were, like either on the valves we would drop blocks, which I wasn't really crazy about, and then the RPC side, like I don't want any halts, right? I don't want anything slowing down, and so we never pruned, and so that's the reason we had. Well, we still have the same number of nodes, but we would just get into these rotations around state sync, right? Which we've talked about, I think, on here. But now I just have 100,000 on all these, and we'll just kind of see and watch it. So we haven't had any issues. I have had some nodes that have panicked and like do a restart. So I do get those notifications, so I know that the binary is panicking. We had one node that was doing it like once every 18 hours. No, not 18 hours, maybe day and a half, 36 hours. And then my state sync node actually just panicked like an hour before this call. So, but they know about it. I sent them logs, and they have a fix coming for that. I think they know what that
They're
is.
so good at just fixing stuff. They're like,
I
oh,
just
you
sent
got
them
a problem?
logs, and they're like, because they were thinking like it was something related to the upgrade. I was like, no, this is post, and they looked at it, and then they said we have a fix. I was like, okay, cool. So, so that's coming as well. But yeah, so all of our nodes are on CDB validators on both chains, and then
Yeah, we're on. Well, the only thing we're not on SayDB for is our
the
archives.
archive, which I don't
Yeah.
think you're going to be able to do, right?
Well, been talking with the team about basically having it internally resync to SayDB. So obviously that's like some custom ass shit software to like make that happen. But they are seeing if they can make it happen because otherwise it's going to
Cool.
be, IAVL forever. Mm.
Yeah, that would
Um,
be. I mean, you would
this-
literally probably like how much data would you save? You'd save a ton of space, right? So
Well, I mean, it's 14 terabytes at the moment, so probably knock that down to at least 4.
I mean,
If,
but we're in this for the long haul. Like 5 years from now, that node won't even start, right? Like it
well,
won't even start.
interestingly, it hasn't taken. So over time, it took longer for a little bit. Like it increased in restart time for a little bit, and then it's just sort of plateaued at about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't
20
seem to be
minutes.
getting. Yeah, it's 20 minutes for a restart. And that the computer it's on is balls to the wall. Like
Right,
it's
just like
yeah.
sorting ones and zeros like a motherfucker.
Yeah, man, it's like a big epic with like just shitloads of RAM. So the the binary alone uses over 100 gig of RAM now. So
Really?
Wow.
yeah,
No shit.
yeah. It's
Wow.
hang on. Let me get my most recent
It's got to be more than that, actually, right?
so the node itself is using it's using
Yeah.
over 400 gig of RAM, but most of that's just cached
Ached.
CFS.
I mean, which
Yeah.
is fine for right now, but I mean, it's a beast. But over time, like it's just untenable, right? Like we're not even a year in, so at some point,
Yeah,
something's gonna
it'll
have to
be
change.
interesting after a couple of years, but I mean, it's a good challenge, like
It
to
is.
plan and you have to. We're talking about so much data, and you have to keep multiple copies of it. It takes
Mhm.
planning for the future. So, um, what I mean by that is you can't just wait till your drives are full. Like, it's
Right.
then
Right.
what do you do?
Like you really got to plan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you got to plan. When you're at
Yeah.
50%, you're like planning ahead, and that might mean having room in that machine to put more and bigger drives, and then sort of resyncing side by side to those drives, and then switching over, and then retiring the old drives, and then bringing in some more, and then adding it to the ZFS to get you through another year. Or it might mean moving to a completely new machine and syncing it side by side. But
Mhm.
by all the time, you need to keep a backup. So we
Right.
use ZFS snapshot syncing to keep a backup. So it's, and that's not like, with the current database, like with the IAVL implementation, it touches a lot of files, and so
Mhm.
whenever you do a ZFS snapshot, it the diff is basically whatever it's touched between snapshots. So when you resync that to your backup machine, so you can just sync across the difference between your last snapshot and your most recent snapshot with ZFS onto a remote machine.
Mhm.
But that snapshot is at least a terabyte a day
Right.
in files
Right.
it's touched
Yeah, because
throughout
it dumps a
24 hours.
shitload, right? It reorganizes everything. It does a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, that takes a long time. So even with a backup strategy that accounts for that, to do that locally is fast. To do that remotely is very, very slow. So,
Yeah, it's not
um,
compressed, right?
well, you can stream it compressed, but it is
Mm.
still slow. To read the drives, compress everything, send it over the slow internet link.
Yeah.
Even if you've got a gig, it's slow
Oh, yeah,
for
yeah.
a terabyte.
Mhm.
And then onto whatever remote machine. And obviously, like when you're using a backup machine, you're using spinners too, so they're not the fastest. Like you don't need for that application really the NVMe, and it's just an extra cost that you don't really want to have. But I tell you what, man, like big SAS drives that are spinners are still not that cheap.
SAS drives are more expensive too. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean they're not that much more expensive than a SATA drive, but so we've got 12 gig SAS 20 terabyte drives, and they're probably about 400 to 450 US, I think,
Mhm.
somewhere around there. Yeah,
Aren't some of those also 10K spinners, or are they all 7,200 RPM?
they're all 7200.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I mean, I don't know how much performance difference I'm really going to get because your
Probably
faster
network.
spin rate sort of gives you a faster seek. But if you're just spraying data on block after block, I don't think it's too
No, it
much of
does.
an
No, sure it
issue.
does. No,
Yeah.
sure it does. But I'm guessing your network limited anyway. Those drives, even 5,400 RPM drives are probably faster than 1 gig a second. But
Well,
you're not getting that anyway, so you're getting 400 and, et cetera, et cetera.
local network's 25 gig.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Then it would make a difference.
Yeah. So just to the local backups, 25 gig, and then we're working on a remote backup. But I'm hoping that I can actually just get a private link between the colo data centers, so I can have. So the primary node at the moment is in Melbourne. So we're looking at putting another one in Sydney, and if we use the same data center, we're hoping to get like a private backhaul over to Sydney of like a 10 gig link or something like that, which is much cheaper than going
Crazy.
over the internet. Yeah.
Really? I figured
Yeah.
it'd be way more expensive.
Oh, it's fucking way cheaper. Yeah.
Oh, they must have fiber drop between those two, and so they just
Oh yeah, there's
portion out some
dark
shit.
fiber all over the place.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially like uh, I won't tell you the data center, but it's one of the bigger ones in Australia. And they're all tier 4 data centers with like backhaul between all of them. They've got dark fiber between the whole network of data centers. So
Yeah, but
you can
that
just
use
plug
case
into
doesn't really. You're not too worried about uptime. You're just worried about because I mean
no,
that's
it's
how it works,
disaster
right?
recovery. Like
Yeah.
if you have say the backup is up there and something happens to the node down here and I have to go, I don't know, say for whatever reason I lose 3 drives and then it nukes the that node, and then for whatever reason at the same time something happens to the local backup machine, and then you need to get your data from the offsite backup. Then to do that, well, I mean, just imagine if it's 50 terabytes, like
Well,
how
at that
long
point,
that would
you're
take.
probably grabbing drives and get on an
Yeah,
airplane.
I would just get in the car.
Seriously, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
that would be the way to do it. Is you at
yeah,
some point it doesn't make any sense. Like it'd be faster just to go fly it down there, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But even like you'd have to take the whole machine. Like it's
Just
you couldn't even just take
just buy
drives out.
buy
You'd have
this buy the seat.
yeah.
You and this 2U box sitting in 17A.
I mean, Sydney and Melbourne are only 1,000 k's apart, so I'd probably just drive it rather than Get in the fucking plane.
Windows down, server in the back seat,
Yeah. Feet out the window.
feet out the window. ACDC on the radio, just fucking hauling my backups to Melbourne.
I don't mind driving. It's from Tamworth to Melbourne is 12 and a half hours, I think.
Fucking docs.
Yeah, it's about 12 and a half hours. I do it in one hit. I get just enough diesel in my car to get there in one hit. Don't even stop for like a
all
piss.
right, everybody's tired of us talking about fucking say archive nodes.
Yeah, well, I didn't see anyone say that, but if that's what you're taking home,
Watching the
all right.
viewership, I'm bored.
Yeah, Frey's not here today.
He's coming, right?
He's cycling next to a train.
He should be here by now. He said he's gonna be here, but he's probably making. Is he making tea or some shit? And just he's probably listening on his phone, making tea. It's like I got time.
I got plenty of time.
I got time.
man.
Although
Probably playing
38 minutes
with
ago,
the
he said
kid.
he was 5 kilometers from
Oh,
home.
here he is.
So
He heard
hopefully he
us.
didn't get pegged by a
Homeless person.
Citron driving the wrong way or something.
Oh, right. Oh, different kind of pig.
Cyclists.
Um,
Yeah.
oh yeah.
He's fixing his hair before he hops in. I can tell.
Yeah,
For
it's for the viewers
sure.
who
the
can't
viewers.
see this.
Speaking
anyway,
of
it's
speaking of hair,
backstage.
Schultze, do you want to talk about why you're bald? Do you want?
No, I don't. But thank you for asking. I appreciate that.
You seem like
I'll-
you've lost some hair since the last time that we were at a phone call together.
Yeah, it's about a centimeter long now, and I
So
won't
what-
talk about it. Thank you.
Man, I don't know. If, I
man.
don't know if the Americans are going to understand your metric units.
That's
Centimeter.
true. Half
Actually,
an
it's
inch-ish.
There you go.
Centimeter is not even a scientific unit anyway. I don't know if I like you using that.
A
It's not?
centimeter, isn't that one? Isn't that like 2 point something fluid ounces, but only in a container that's like got a diameter of 2 inches or something? That's probably how it works in America, right?
No, it's always
Probably.
about some English king's length of a finger between the knuckle and the right. That's what we base everything on. Is some dead king's fucking hand length that happened 350
length
years ago.
of
But
the
we're gonna hold
bridge
on to
of
it
his-
like we love it.
It's the bridge of your nose.
It-
Standard unit, 1.5 inches.
I thought it was, wasn't it this originally? Wasn't it?
I am definitely talking shit, but none of those joints on my hands look to be an inch. Oh, actually, yeah, between the two knuckles could be around about an inch.
I thought that's where it was. I thought that's where it started.
You're not
I
thinking
thought it
of
was
cu-
too.
a
I actually
cubit.
use this as my.
You're not thinking like a cubit. That's the forearm one, isn't it?
It's your fucking system of measure. Why are you asking us?
Well, no, I think no.
We
I
just
think,
inherited
I think
this shit. Now we
cubits-
won't give it up.
No,
We're
wasn't
stubborn.
cubits like Egyptian or pre the one before? I'm tired, man. What's the
Did you
one
know
that?
It should be like cranked, man. You just like fucking blasted down
Yeah,
here
you-
on your motorbike next to a train.
Yeah,
Motorbike.
pretty much. No, pedal
Oh,
bike.
push bike.
Push bike. Yeah.
Yeah.
Motorbike.
Did I say
Um,
motorbike?
You did.
it's the
During
motorbike.
during the reign of
I kind
King
of always
Edward II
wanted a
in the
motorbike, though.
in the early 14th century, the inch was defined as 3 grains of barley, dry and round, placed end to end lengthwise.
Wow. Okay.
Here we are.
Dry and round. Yeah, baby.
They measure
did you
measure
know-
horses in hands, don't they? Hands.
They do. Yep.
I
Well, you
don't
guys still use
Uh,
stone, right? Isn't stone still around?
Oh, jeez.
know. It's quite boomerish.
Is it?
So typically, you'll know your weight. I think it's quite typical that I think in my generation, people would know their weight in both. So I know I can kind of convert in my head between stone and kilograms. But if you ask me my weight, I would use kilograms because you configure bike cleats in kilograms, and you configure
Everyone's got
ski
their
bindings
reasons,
in
right?
kilograms. Well, like the 2 times I need to know my weight accurately are for the release tension on a ski binding, which granted I haven't needed for a few years, and release tension for a bike cleat. Other than that, I don't need to know
Wait.
my weight.
Is that
How many-
true? Bike cleats are supposed to be adjusted by your weight.
It helps, especially on if you're using like 0 degree. So I cycle with road cleats, not mountain bike cleats, and I use
Oh, yeah.
I use 0-degree
Okay.
cleats as well, so they really lock you in, and you kind of they're a bit finicky. If you have them too light, they release too easy. If you have them too, so you kind of need to sort of tune it to what your weight is a little bit.
Okay.
Do they measure the
Huh.
height of horses in bike cleats?
Yes,
They do.
but only in France.
The horse is 12 cleat.
Une cleat. Ce cheval est 14 cleats. N'est-ce pas?
N'est-ce pas? So,
Hey, do you
made it
know
home?
why the US doesn't use metric? This is actually a true story. Do you know why?
Stubborn as shit.
Okay.
We don't give a fuck.
No, this is really good. Okay, so metric was invented sometime way back yonder, right? So guy creates the metric system and he sends it to all the different like presidents and kings and stuff in the world. Okay, he just sends them mail. And they're like, hey, this is this really cool system I came up with. You should use it. Most people were like, this is awesome. Yes, we're doing it. Here's what happened to the United States. Pirates intercepted it. They intercepted the ship. Okay, this is true. Pirates intercepted the ship. They're going through the documents and they see this letter. They read it, and they're like, holy shit, this is really important. We're going to deliver it to the United States. And so they did. But because they're pirates, I believe they were executed and the letter was just burnt. So it's just some really odd fluke of why we don't do metric.
You sure it's not institutional inertia? Because bear in mind, like in the UK, we still use miles for distance. Weirdly, like there's a bunch of things where we're just like,
You guys mix and match, right?
yeah, we're very
Yeah.
mixed match, like pints. And people like there is a whole generation of people that lose their mind if you use anything other than imperial still, and they will vote for any political party that uses imperial. They'll be like, okay, so we're the party of docking your salary every month, but we will allow you to measure your beer in pints forever. Not that anybody's even threatening it, but yeah. And also, we'll make sure that you can measure distance in miles, but we are going to dock your pay every month and give it to, I don't know, us elves to be richer. That's what we're going to do. Well, I don't know. Look, you know what? When the
called us
in this country, right? When the upper classes, be it in the form of the Tory party, win an election, that's basically what they're doing. They go and give themselves a tax break, usually via wealth taxes, trusts, and money laundering through the City of London.
Nice.
And then every working age person faces various regressive taxes that mean that the share of tax burden is overwhelmingly borne by people between sort of 18 and about 50 that work and that don't vote for the Tory party, by and large. So, I'm being facetious, but it's also how British politics works, which is they do dock your pay and they do put it in their own pocket, and they do just basically promise you that they will let you measure stuff in miles, unlike this goddamn French that measures things in kilometers.
But there's no. But do road signs in the UK? They don't show miles at all, do they? It's all
of course. Everything's
aren't they?
miles. Everything's miles. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, is it?
Oh yeah, everything's so everything is miles an hour, miles distance, pints.
Okay.
No,
but
it's
then,
not.
But then weight. Yeah. But then
But
weight
weight is
kilograms.
Weight's kilograms, not pounds. So pounds is gone.
Weight's kilograms, unless you're talking about a person, in which case you might get either. Height is
Or stone.
height is always feet and inches. Actually, I don't think I would
Okay.
ever say. I know what my height is in centimeters because I'm not a psychopath, but I would, if you asked me my height, I would tell you 6'3".
Yeah.
Obviously.
So, okay, do you use liters per kilogram or liters per kilometer, or do you use miles per gallon?
What's liters per kilometer?
Miles.
Yeah, so that was
That sounds like a
miles
bad drinking game.
Miles per gallon. Yeah, miles per gallon.
Really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
But if you were
Pay
like,
for your fuel and
but if you were
liters,
like,
then?
but if you were like, yeah, I want a pint of beer, I want a pint of milk. So milk and beer come in pints. But if I was buying a soda, it would be a half liter, or 1 liter, or 2 liters. And if you gave me a pint of Coca-Cola in any
Yeah, that wouldn't make
situation other than a pub, there would be I think I can legally get a bow and arrow and shoot you as long as it's midday on a Sunday.
And you're buying fuel in gallons.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Really?
buying fuel in gallons.
Fuck. So it's a sort of like good,
Or
or
they- or
maybe
they-
it's liters.
is it-
Maybe it's liters. I can't remember.
you've
I
dipped
know
the
the
toe
rest.
in
I
the.
thought it might be. I thought it was in liters actually.
Hang on.
Yeah, so did I.
Do you know what?
Do you own a car?
I don't know
Yeah.
the car, so
Maybe I should find.
I think
somebody
it's a
else.
gallon. I think the price is per gallon.
You've seen a gas station, right? You've seen the signs at the gas station.
Well, so like the last time I bought petrol, like obviously I know how to drive a car. I have a driving license and stuff, but I've always just like rented a car or borrowed a car, so I haven't really had to worry about petrol. So I haven't really thought about it.
Frey's got 99 problems, but gas ain't one.
Yeah, the last time I bought gas was literally. Do you have a petrol mower? You know, like a lawnmower.
Yeah, sure.
I remember about 15 years ago now, my dad going to mow something, being like, "I'm out of petrol. Go get me some petrol." And then be like, "No, you go get it." It's like, "No, I've got other stuff to do. I'll give you $5 if you go get a jerry can of petrol." I just went to a gas station and bought some petrol. That was literally the last time I bought petrol.
I
Like,
just
Jacket
image.
Potato says it's liters at the pump, but everyone talks about the MPGs.
Jack
Okay,
Potatoes,
so
right? I
that-
just did
so
an image search
that
for
does check
UK
out.
gas stations, and they're all liters. They're all dollars per liter.
That does make sense. I had a little wibbly there when I was like, I'm sure it's not gallons. That seems weird. You would talk
Well-
about the
well,
capacity of the car in gallons, but then you would buy it in liters.
Well, it wouldn't be a quart, right? And usually a gallon is a large unit of measure for fuel in Europe, right? Because usually it's like per liter, which everybody here can't figure out because we buy in a gallon because all our cars should get miles per gallon, and they're too large and everything else, right? So it does make sense that it would be a smaller unit of measure than gallon, but I wouldn't think it would be quart because that would be weird. I've never heard of that. So liters.
So what you're
liters
saying
makes
is
sense.
that
What
the
even is a
American
quart?
the American vehicle uses so much fuel that it's just unfeasible to have a measurement in liters because the
Yes.
numbers are just too darn big.
Nobody would understand it. Well, nobody here would understand it. So that's gallon. And I mean, to our credit, unlike what we just talked about, we do measure cars in miles per gallon and we buy gallons of gas. So at least there's some
How-
consistency in
at
unit
least
of
it's
measurement.
How many gallons of gas does your your car take?
That tank holds 35 gallons. So
Right.
that's like a billion liters, I think, something like that.
So
That's
my
like
tank
100,000
holds
liters, right?
95 liters. So
This would- How many gallons a liter?
95 liters. That's
I mean,
quite
how
a
many
lot of
liters a gallon?
liters.
4 liters per gallon.
Not quite, right? 3.78. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
but
So, all right, my bad. So this truck holds 132 liters.
that is a big
Sweet
fucking
Jesus.
gas tank.
If
This
we're on
kinda-
a highway,
you know what? This totally makes sense though, because you know when you watch like a disaster movie and then like the survivors are like fucking siphoning, they siphon one SUV and they're like, "Yeah, we've got enough petrol to last our survivor camp like a year," and you're like,
Yeah.
you siphon one fucking truck? No bullshit. I'm calling bullshit. 150
Or they
liters.
drive to the other
132
side of
liters.
America without ever filling up.
this truck is not like on the highway. Isn't that bad? Even it's got big stupid tires and big stupid suspension. And all this kind of big
Do you have
like
mud
zero
terrain?
coefficient, like zero coefficient in terms of like smoothness in the air, right? It's like a billboard with knobby tires dragging a pile of sandpaper behind it. Literally, it's like really what it is. But even
beating
with
the wind into submission.
literally, it's like I don't give a fuck what's coming at me. And then even with that, I would probably still get 500 miles out of a tank, which is pretty good. It's not bad.
So I get about, from my 95 liters, I get probably close to 900 kilometers.
So about the same mileage
About the
ish.
same,
About
right?
600, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you get? What is that? Like 25 miles to the gallon? What is that thing?
It's
How many
it's-
liters per hectare?
It's about 10 liters per 100. 10 liters per 100 kilometers.
What's that? What's that Simpsons thing when Homer's in the little car and he's like, "What country is this from? It no longer exists." He's like, "It gets 35. What is it? It's like 35 liters of kerosene per the hectare." I can't remember what the fuck the unit of measure is. So what'd you say? How long?
About
far
10
does it go?
liters per the 100 kilometers.
You listen
Yeah, so
to
you guys
Game
do
of Nodes, the Validator podcast.
Fucking hell. Right. But don't you guys measure in distance per liter, not liters per distance? Don't you usually say like it's like 100 miles or
Okay.
no? Because we
it's-
say miles per gallon, but don't you usually do like liters per 100? Isn't that what it is? Like liters per 100 kilometers or something like that? Is that what like
That's what I
Here
just
we
said.
do miles per
Okay.
gallon.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
it
he
is what you
said.
said.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, 10
I was too
liters per
busy
100.
I was too busy on Homer and that little with the car with the B on it.
Like miles per gallon. If you're doing kilometers per liter,
Yeah, it's one
I guess
over
it's
whatever you're
like
telling me what it is.
10 kilometers per liter, I guess that is. Something like that. I don't know. The inverse of whatever I was talking
That
about
would be
previously.
40 kilometers per gallon, which is about 24, 25 miles per gallon. That seems about right. Right? Something like that? Plus or minus?
I don't know.
Who knows?
I'm just like in that. There's
I
that.
don't
There's
know.
that. There's that creepy sketch in Monkey Dust, the creepy and weird British comedy show that I'm forever trying to get you guys to watch, where somebody is sat at some traffic lights and 3 robotic-looking cyclists pull up and go, "We are the cyclists. How quaint! A car powered by dead animals. We merely require sunshine and food to power our lycra-clad bodies through the air." And then they just coast off without even moving their legs, and it's like an encounter with the uncanny.
All right, I'm putting a link to Crazy Vaclav's used cars. That's where he pulls it out.
If it doesn't have a Simpsons reference, it's not a real episode of Game of Nodes, is it?
That's what he's getting out in the road. He's like, put it in H.
It's difficult now because I look around the world. I have a son. Things have changed, and I'm like, what will I show them to give them a moral compass? And I'm like, yes, seasons 1 to 6 of The Simpsons.
Oh, it's absolutely what it is. Yeah,
But,
it's
but
absolutely
where the
what it
fuck
is.
will I get such a thing? Because they're on like season 100 now on the televisual device, and it's just insanity. It's like Tony Blair, noted war criminal. We must include him in an episode because he was once British Prime Minister. Let's get him in. It's just everybody gets to go on The Simpsons.
That's why I've had hard drive spinning for 20 years of this shit, right? Like that episode of Crazy Vaclavs has been spinning around on a platter at 5,400 RPMs for 20 years, waiting for that moment. Because
Just like, I think I need to get this clip.
That's right.
I tell you what, we know what people say about the utility of blockchain. Proof that we never needed a blockchain to have everything we needed on the internet is that Frinkiac has existed for like 10 years. And Frinkiac is the best website on the internet, bar none. Like, I
remember.
reckon. do you know that you must know the site I mean, right?
Yeah, I do.
And when they introduced the automatic GIF feature in like 2015 or whatever it was, I was just like, how like the internet is completed. We're done. Like technology doesn't get any better than this.
We're done, people.
I think of a Simpsons quote. I put it in a Frinkiac. It's got an Elasticsearch cluster or whatever with fuzzy match. So I don't even need to get it perfect. I could be really tired. I could get that quote a little bit wrong. It will find me the episode and it will spit a GIF out.
That's it.
You know what?
Vaclav.
What? I do miss the archives of like response memes. There used to be a folder on my desktop which would be like sorted by like emotion and then intention and all sorts of nonsense. Just to have the perfect GIF or the perfect response meme. Those don't exist anymore.
Dude,
you just Google it.
I'll send you my folder.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, you still have yours?
Oh yeah.
I have some checked into GitHub. Yeah.
Totally.
I have
inappropriate 1994 gifs and shit. Yeah, there's tons of them.
I have like a folder full of like, it's called like essential work stuff, and it's just like all the random shit that I need on a laptop when I buy a new laptop. So it's like the template for taxes, like a couple of basic things for like
taxes.
Just like admin things that I find super useful. Some spreadsheets that I always end up using, over and over again. A folder full of memes, a folder full of Photoshop templates. Like a bunch of fonts, like the random fonts that you use for like shit posting, like a little 8-bit font, when you're looking to do, the thing where it's like the Pokemon GIF where it's like you can Photoshop in so-and-so wants to fight and all of that kind of thing. Like that's a specific font. So when I've used fonts for like shit posting, those sorts of things, I always save the font in a folder so that if I have a new laptop and a new copy of Photoshop, I can load in that font. All the fonts for the shit posting are just there in Photoshop. Should I ever open it? I'm just like, maybe today's the time to shit post.
I'm going
Yeah.
through this folder. This is the oldest file in here. Like this is exactly what you're talking about. My oldest my oldest file in here is 1997. So there's some shit in here, man. There's some shit in here.
97. It's like
all
7
these-
pixels.
I'm surprised it's even got metadata. That
I know.
that
Well, that's I moved the
video
files.
is back to then.
All these GIFs are like 64 by 64 and shit. Like it's like one of those types of things. They're perfect.
Is it like the comic book guy downloading the picture of Janeway?
Just Simpsons and all. Yeah, it's a bunch of stupid shit.
You know, Say is up to 55 million blocks. We'll have to have a 100 million block party.
Speaking of 100, next week.
There's another important 100 coming up. Which
Yeah,
is,
the Hundy. Fuck,
let's
me, that's
not
almost 2
celebrate it.
years.
Well, you know, the perverse thing, right, is that as soon as we get past 100 to 104, then it is the 2-year Annie. So,
Mhm.
it's just milestone after milestone at this point.
I thought we were going 100 and going to go back down.
99,
We said
98.
99.
Count
Down
back
to
down to
one.
0. That's all, folks.
Yeah, everything's got to
Will-
end. Well,
Yeah, will the token price come back before we hit 0?
Where we get to the bull market. Well, we had a bull market a few weeks ago, right? It's
Yeah, I think
like
it might be.
another,
that
another
was
2
good.
years. Another 2 years till the next one.
Yep.
18
enjoyed it.
months.
mhm.
Yeah, we had a good innings.
That was a good run.
It was nice.
Those 48 hours and January 8th or whatever it was.
Yeah, there was
It was a
for
good
a few hours we felt alive again.
Didn't make any of my price targets bag hold it at 0 again.
Yeah, so
I'm
I'll
just gonna wait for 10 more percent.
Just that fucking
Just a little bit more.
$2.50, man.
just gotta get there.
Juno's going to $1.
So hang on a second. It's the end of tax year, right? In the UK.
Only for you.
Today. Oh, wait, so no, it isn't the end of the tax year. No, it's the you got to pay your taxes deadline. Make sure you filed your return and pay your taxes deadline. So if you haven't, you might have a different end of tax year and whatnot, unless there's something very special going on with your accounting. That shit needs to have been filed before today. You might have got it sorted months ago, in which case, good job. Otherwise, today is your last day to do it. So if you're listening to this podcast on catch up on a podcast player in the UK and you're thinking, damn, I forgot to do that. Well, it probably is already February the 1st, and you might need to call up
Welcome to
HMRC.
Fine Town.
And if you're contrite about it, I've found they quite often will just give you an extension of a couple of weeks to get your shit together.
You have found. How many times have you not paid your tax?
Only the very
Right.
first time, and it was because I had basically made some mistakes on the form on the 31st. And I was like, I can't submit this. So,
The very first time, like when you were 15?
well, we don't submit tax returns in the UK. You don't have to.
But he's talking business.
Yeah. So, if you just work for a company, you don't submit tax returns. They do your taxes for you because it's pay as you earn.
What?
In the UK, if you just go work for another company your entire life, you never have to fill in a tax return. Most people,
It's all
the
managed.
overwhelming majority of people in the UK never see a tax return. Have never filled one in.
Do they not earn any income outside their normal job? You got no side hustle?
You have a threshold. You have a threshold before you have to report it.
Side
So,
hustle.
so like if you go like sell stuff at car boot sales, right, or just like you get rid of an old car for 500 quid, you don't have to declare that. Like it's a
Or
tiny
you've got an
amount.
NFT problem?
If you have an NFT problem, you probably have to declare it because then it's cap gains, and you do need to list the assets. But I'm not an accountant, so citation needed on that one. I think until you hit the threshold, maybe you don't need to worry about it. You would need to keep a track of what the value is, though, just in case you ever did sell it. But yeah, so most people never fill out a tax return. But I've always worked more than one job since I finished university like 15 years ago or whatever. So I had to fill in a tax return, but I was tired and stupid and 22 years old or whatever, and so I cocked it up because I left it to the deadline because that's what I always do. And so I had to
Taxable
call.
income for FY20. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I have
I had to
some.
call. I had to call them up and say, look, guys, I just need to recalculate this. It's going to take me a day. I'm really sorry. I am going to pay it. And they were just like, I guess they probably looked at my details and they were like, he's a fucking 23-year-old idiot. Let's just give him another
Like,
week.
it's like he's not making shit, so it doesn't really matter. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
helping our cause here.
I think that year I made less than minimum wage because of reasons.
Like,
and
oh, okay, son.
yeah. I paid some. I
fine.
paid. I
You'll
paid
just come back when
something
you
like
scrape
50
up
quid.
enough jelly babies to pay your bill.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. The amount I had to pay was small. But so anyway, yeah, tax returns and everything. Get that squared away today. If you're listening to this on catch up, then I feel bad for you.
Fine
son.
town.
Yeah, yeah. Get on the blower. Have a word with your man at HMRC.
So end of January, you have to have it all figured out, huh?
Yeah, for the
It's tough.
preceding. So if your tax year ends, for most people it ends in April, and then you need to have it figured out and paid on the 31st of January the following year. So
So you're talking you're talking April 22 to April 23.
yes.
Due January 24.
Yeah.
Oh fuck. What the hell?
What?
January 24?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
What?
you have 9 months to figure it out, or whatever the hell that is.
Yeah. I mean,
Get your shit together.
yeah. I mean,
Oh,
We
right.
only get like
I mean,
US
that
we
seems
get 3
reasonable.
months. Actually, 3.5
What?
months.
But it's like sometimes it
Corporate-
requires quite a bit of
corporate returns
work.
Corporate returns are due on March 15th for the last year. So we have basically, what is that, 105 days? And then personal returns are due 30 days after that. So you have 135 days. That's it. Or you do an extension.
We get 10 and a half months.
Yeah. See, Niall knows what I'm talking about. Those are reasonable timelines.
Personally, extensions you can always do. You have to pay on April, but then you can file later. And then so you can file 10.5 months later, you can do an extension, but the money is owed on April 15th for personal
So,
taxes in the US.
In Australia, though, I think so our end of FY is at the end of June, right? The 6th month. And then if you don't have an accountant, you have to have it done by the end of August, I think, or sometime in August. But if you do have an accountant, then you can have it done in 14th of May the following year.
What?
Yeah.
That's a bit weird.
You just
Here is
say I have an
just the
accountant.
same, time, whatever.
Well,
What do you-
accountants are busy. They can't just do everyone's
Do
fucking
you have the
tax
same thing where
immediately.
you have to pay on account? So we have the thing where you have to pay your bill, and then you also pay the first payment of half of you pay the first payment of half of your tax bill from the last tax year as a prepayment for the coming one.
Jesus Christ, they really fucking strained their brain coming up with that, didn't they?
So
Seriously.
What? So
if
we
you
have
earn the
we
same
have to
amount, then
So if-
you have already paid it by the time it rolls around next year, and you just get a refund. It's a super weird system.
So here, if it's an individual tax, like if you don't have a company or whatever, if it's just your own individual tax, then if you have income outside of your regular job, so a regular job you get payee tax, right? It's like what you were talking about before, the fray. You just pay tax every time you get paid. It calculates and then pays the tax. It's never right, but it's approximately
Close
around
enough.
about what you would expect to pay. And then if you have income outside of that, then you get away with it for the first year, but then you do your tax return and then you have to pay it, right? So say if you buy a rental property or something and you're renting your property, you're getting some rental income that's not getting all completely chewed up by fucking interest. Then say you get like another 10,000, right? And then you do your tax return. They say, okay, you've got this other 10,000. You owe us $3,000 of that as tax. You pay your fucking tax. And then the following year, they send you a little letter that says, okay, now every single quarter you have to give us $750, so that we know that that's what we estimate your tax is going to be for your rental property, right?
Mhm.
And then
Yeah,
at the
that's
end of the
exactly how it
year, if
works
it's
here.
different, you get a refund or you pay extra. So that's similar to that. In business, you have to do a business activity statement every 3 months that says we have earned this amount, This is how much GST we have to give back to the government, or the government has to give back to us. And based on our profit and
Is
loss for the
GST
quarter,
is GST sales tax?
yeah, VAT.
So
or
we
whatever.
report that every quarter, but all the rest of it you just do once a year.
Oh, okay. Well, we say we think we've
That's separate.
made this much profit for the quarter, so we'll give you a little bit of.
We don't have to declare any of that. We just say we've had like we made like a pretty hard distinction between vatable income and non-vatable income. And actually companies that there's a whole different thing. I don't really understand this. So there's a whole different thing where if you're a company that does activities that mean the majority of your income is like stocks and shares or other assets or whatever, it's not really like trading activity, you get filed away as a whole different other type of company. And then I think your reporting might be different, but we're like a consultancy structure.
So our company tax rates are different if you're a company that earns money from passive investment or a company that earns money from active business. So if you just own a bunch of shares in a company, your tax rate's higher than if you were like, shoveling dirt from the ground to a trailer.
I mean, you'd hope so, right?
Yeah.
Because there's those guys just making their money off their shares. That's money for nothing and your chicks for free, right?
I mean, at the end,
we've got to move all these TVs and microwave ovens. You know what I mean?
At the very end of the day, it doesn't make any difference really, in that a company with a higher tax rate has less working capital because they're paying more tax. But when like companies, the whole point of a company is to make money so you can distribute profits to the shareholders, right? So when you distribute the profits to the shareholders in Australia, you distribute them with a thing that's called a franking credit. So basically all of the tax that the company's already paid accumulates franking credits. And then when you distribute the profits to shareholders, they get distributed with a franking credit. So 100% franked is 30%. That means that if I give you $1, I actually give you $1.30.
Tell you, this sounds like a scam. I don't want to buy your NFT.
No, it's fair because
I don't want to buy your NFT project. I don't understand what the franking NFT is. I'm not interested.
It's to avoid double taxation, right? So if your company earns a bunch of money and pays a bunch of tax on its income, and then it distributes the profits to you as the shareholder, and then you have to pay 30 cents on the dollar tax again, then the government's getting fucking like 70 cents
double tax
for every dollar the company earns. It's double taxation. So what we do here is we give you $1 and we give you a franking credit. So we actually give you 70 cents.
What we do here is
the
company pays the taxes, and then the director taking a shareholder's dividend pays taxes, and that's it. But the dividend to shareholders is obviously not counted against profit either. So it's a dividend out of profit, which I guess is probably the same everywhere. And I'm sure then somewhere in that they kind of cut off a slice for the upper classes and just hand it over to them to spend on horses or something.
Hounds.
Just hounds. It's like it is one of the most insane things to me, right? That
hounds.
Right. So you guys might not know this, but hunting with dogs, like organized, red tails and poshos riding around on horses, ripping foxes to pieces, was only banned like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like really recently.
Why would they ban it?
Not out there doing it.
Yeah, why was it banned?
Because it's insanely cruel to foxes, and fox populations are quite small, and we are a tiny island with an ecology that is completely out of whack.
Well, then you can bring that practice over here because we got a shitload of foxes.
Okay, well,
have a go at the pigs.
Hey, you know what, man? Like, you are welcome to our posh people. They can just go to Australia. They can fuck off to Australia and never come back. That would be amazing.
I mean, they still have to buy their hounds with British pounds. Like, we don't have fucking you know.
But anyway, the point was they were like, no, we want to rip apart foxes with our dogs. And so they just went and fucking did illegal hunts, but still all fucking dressed up in like their finery and all that bullshit. You're just like, will you
It's a
guys just get
tradition.
will you guys just get a fucking better hobby, you absolute posh knobbers?
I'm sure they'd
Like,
just be just as happy dressing up in all their poshery and like drinking tea out in the forest.
just fucking just have an orgy or something. Who gives a shit about horse fucking like
Well, they
whatever
do
it
that
is.
too after the fox hunt,
Oh,
Yeah, that's
God.
later. That's later.
and they hang
It's
the
just
foxes
like
in a
like
circle and then do an
look,
orgy.
what's wrong with cricket, right? Cricket also in the countryside, in the sunshine, you drink a bunch of beers, you try not to get hit by the ball when you're at the point where you're too drunk and you might just not be able to catch it and it'll just whack you in the head. And then ideally you want to avoid batting because it's kind of hassle. Great sport on a summer day in the countryside. What's with all this fucking horse bullshit and fox bullshit and coats and tails bullshit? Just
Have an orgy like a regular fucking bunch of people, right? Like,
yeah.
Rent
I have
an
a friend,
island,
I have a
have
friend
an
that's
orgy.
what are you gonna do, right?
uh,
I have a friend that's
Fucking get
properly
after
from the
it.
countryside, right? And one of the first things I found out about him after I met him, first of all, was that he thought that scrumping was perfectly natural and normal thing that people just did. And I was like, okay, I've only ever heard about that from children's books. And his
what is that?
dad, scrumping, is when you go to an orchard and you take the apples so that you can make cider. Hard cider. Sorry for the
Scrumping.
American.
That's called scrumping.
Scrumping. Yes.
I love how you throw that term out like we all know what the fuck that is. Like,
Very,
it's the
very,
most
very
random.
different. Very different from something like wassailing, which is where you go and ask for apples or alcohol in order to then go and serenade the orchard so that the next harvest will be good. All these standard normal things. Anyway, so he just said something about scrumping, and I was like, I've never heard about that outside of a children's book. I didn't think people actually did that. And he was like, well, how do you get your free cider? And I was like, okay. It turned out his dad had been mayor of the local village by losing. I think it was like losing it. Basically, it's such a small hamlet that eventually everybody had to be mayor at some point, and the actual
Like, whose turn is
mayoring,
it?
yeah, the actual mayoring involved being dunked in the village pond.
Is this a Dow?
Yeah, it's a doubt. That's what he said. I heard as they put him under. Yeah, these are the kind of places where I'm just like, I am a city slicker. This does not compute. I don't know what you're talking about, I'm afraid.
What was the other term? Scrumping, and what was the other term you used?
Scrumping.
No, what was the other one you said after that?
Oh, wassailing.
What was that one?
Wassailing, which is when you go sing to the orchard.
Sing to the orchard or sing in the orchard?
You sing to the orchard, but you can also. Sometimes when people say wassailing, they mean going and singing to the orchard, and sometimes they mean around the same time you would go and bring a hearty tune to other people, and then they would give you like a seasonal greeting, probably hot cider or something like that, in exchange for the song.
What?
Is this on a specific day or just like any day? Like, hey, it's June 24th.
Harvest.
We're gonna go do this.
It's like I think
Oh.
it's kind of like harvest sort of time. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
Fuck,
so
guys need
bear in mind,
more
like
shit to do over there.
after the Black Death, there was a period where like the country was very, very depopulated, and so in response to this, there were a lot of like minor holidays, high holidays, and a lot of folk traditions that kind of either kind of re-emerged during that period or whatever. I guess people needed to like kind of have a lot of parties and drink a lot of cider to start
Right.
repopulating the country, right? So they needed
We're
to do all this shit.
alive. We're alive.
That's a famous
as one
wassailing
does.
tune,
Yeah,
I believe.
exactly.
Yeah. Like fucking.
Well, we
God,
made
we're
it out. Let's go
alive.
sing to the trees and fucking
Right.
drink or whatever.
I mean, that's all that singing to the trees stuff is all it's all the pre-Christian funky business of the British
Yeah, yeah.
Isles, isn't it? It's
Yeah,
all
yeah.
King Arthur and God, what's the fox called? From the Disney. Robin Hood. The Robin Hood. He's a fox in the Disney Robin Hood, isn't he?
Ralph? No,
Ralph?
maybe not. No, that's not Ralph. What's
You
Fox
know,
called?
Robin Hood.
I do.
I assume his name would be Robin.
Yeah, but he's a fox. Well, yeah, and it's not Ralph. It's clearly Robin, Robin Hood. But he's the Green Man, isn't
Fred?
he? That's what Robin Hood is.
My goodness, I learned so much in this episode.
Just all sorts of random
Yeah.
facts. So, like, one of the best facts about Robin Hood, right? Robin Hood's a really interesting character because there's loads and loads of different bits of folklore that kind of get jammed into this one character over time. Like, there was this I think it was Anglo-Saxon that, like, I think it was the Vikings tried to get rid of out of the Norfolk Broads, or maybe the
Mhm.
Plantagenets, and he basically just lived in a swamp. And every time they tried to, like, throw him out, he'd just be like, "Nah, fuck off." And so he would just disappear into the swamp with his little band of bandits, and they were like, "Ah, he just keeps defying the king and calling him a dickhead." I'm paraphrasing, but that's like, I think that's one of the origin myths for Robin Hood, was basically this swamp guy that was just Larry as fuck.
Oh, merry man.
He's just like, "We'll see you later." And then, of course, all the stuff about the Britons fleeing to sort of Wales, where it's sort of green and whatnot. I think they took a lot of that with them. And then there's all the like, it all crosses over with the Druids and the Romans and all that. I don't know. You'd have to get some like historian of folklore to really fully tie it all together. But it's all super interesting. The most interesting thing about Robin Hood, of course, is that he was like a commoner. That was the whole point. He was a commoner in touch with the land via the forest, and as an avatar of the
Right.
Green Man.
Right.
And the Green Man is like this really powerful folkloric entity in kind of pre-Christian sort of folkloric traditions, and also Celtic Christianity to some extent. I believe.
Sang to the trees type of dude, right?
Yeah, just like kind of your
Yeah,
classic,
yeah.
you go into the woods and you're the king, but you've been a bad guy to the people and maybe the trees, and then maybe the trees just don't let you leave the wood,
Right.
like,
You have an orgy, you save the foxes, and you sing to the trees.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
It's your classic, you know the story.
It's a classic.
But the
Classic
myth was
bedtime story.
the myth was so powerful that it gradually changed over time, where the upper classes appropriated it and made Robin Hood a minor noble in the retellings of the story. So he becomes Robert of Locksley,
Right.
where he's this minor noble who's disenfranchised upon his return from the Crusades.
Right.
And it's like a really interesting story of like how a folk tale had such power that the upper classes were like, we can't have this. Like, we're gonna have to just make him we'll have to make him a minor aristocrat to like take the sting out of this, because people are just a bit too excited about flipping off the power of the king or whatever. So yeah.
I mean, any story that tells somebody to fuck off is a good story with me.
Hey, I mean, what is Slapshot about other than folk heroes telling people to fuck off?
It's true.
It's a great story.
It's true. It's a good fucking story.
And
news?
You know what? That's kind of
Oh.
what Butch Cassidy is about as well. So Paul Newman definitely
All
had a
stories are
run of
about
films.
somebody telling somebody to fuck off. What are you talking about? Like every movie. Somebody's getting the bird. All right. Should we do a couple news pieces? Number one. Well, actually, we did do one. Actually, we should, before you got here, we talked about Stride on DYDX and all that kind of shit. Do you want to talk about, so we did talk about last week about Reese officially retiring from Juno. And there's a Reese Williams, who's, I guess, dev lead, right? Was the development lead? Is that the right? I don't know. Reese, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your title. I'm not sure what your
Something
title
like
is.
that.
He said he resigned from Juno on January 9th in private. So PR pull request and finalization plans can be made. V19, which I think just happened, right? Was this last week?
Just on
7
testnet.
days?
I think the prop has just gone up for mainnet.
Oh, you're right. It's going up on. You're right. It's up on my board here on February 5th. That will be the last one. He said V19 will be a final upgrade, and then I think that was in response to friend of the show Highlander, who's been on the show before. There's a great tweet which we'll link in this. It says, "Thank you for all your hard work." I think the idea was that there was some structure within Juno community paying amount to Reese, but I think maybe Reese is going to work for Strange Love or something similar to that.
So Reese has
been
been working for Strange Love, for a period of time.
Oh, okay. So it's been a while.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So thank you for all your hard work. Juno Reese, it's been a pleasure, but I certainly don't want the Juno Network community paying you $20K a month to go work for Strangelove. You're in or you're out, lad. One or the other. Thought that was a really good tweet. And so
Literally
recently
1 second
decided-
later, he's like, "Yeah, I quit last week." So
Yeah, I quit on January 9th. So that was on January 9th, and then Highlander posted that on January 21st. But we'll put a link. I thought that was pretty funny. We did talk about like what's going to happen next within Juno and who's taking that over. Is there anybody who's been identified for that, or we don't know?
I don't know. I mean, I'm
Is there
out.
a posting or anything? Everybody's out. All right.
Um,
shit, baby.
I have literally no idea.
Right.
When Charter happened,
Yeah. When the cores dissipated, that was the end of it, right?
Yeah, I never took any kind of vesting to be part of Core One. Like I just took it as to help the transition to the charter and to make sure that in particular really that Reese has some stability and to try and maybe hire one or two more devs. So we kind of got Joel on during that period as well,
Yeah.
which was pretty good. And he did a good job. But I just think that like managing a dev team, even asynchronously, even with a small amount of time commitment, is not nothing. And so it's just one of those things that my commitment to it wasn't like I could only do a very small amount.
Right.
I wasn't being paid for it. I hadn't been paid for that stuff in a very long time. And so I think the reality there was it was sort of it was very self-directed on Reese's part, and then any additional stuff was kind of managed by his inclusion within the Strangelove team from a kind of pastoral perspective, I suppose. And I know Jake also talked to him pretty regularly, so there was a bit of this and that and the other. But my kind of main concerns were just trying to keep it a little bit stable, and to be fucking honest, making sure we didn't pay notional $1 million for notional stuff was like one of my biggest reasons why I joined Core One when offered, and just fucking died on that hill, to be honest.
Just to keep that shit in check, right?
Just to make sure they didn't get that money, because they didn't.
Right.
$1 million for what? And
Yeah.
imagine my surprise, it's all collapsed since then, because of course it was going to. So we didn't pay notional of $1 million, which we shouldn't have done. We shouldn't have agreed to in the first place, and we didn't pay them the money. So that's, if I did one thing,
Mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. And then the charter folks, sort of, I did some stuff with them as part of the early period of the charter, but there's not really a not crass way of saying that what I want to do work-wise does not correspond with what they want to do, number one. And number two, I don't really think Juno can afford me.
Fair.
Because I have to charge them this. If I was going to go back and work for it now, rather than saying, I've given free time for a long period. If I was going to go back and work for it now, if I pulled out my rate card for what I do for corporate clients, I don't think it's good. It's more that it's not so much they couldn't afford it. I don't think it's good value to the Juno community.
Right.
So that's it. So I said, I didn't continue with that either. So I don't really know what's going on.
But honestly, that I mean, we talk about Juno a lot, but I don't think that issue is a technical. That chain is not in need of technical assistance. It's in need of direction, and it's in need of leadership, in my perspective, in terms of where it fits in the market, what the plan is to work out of this, and what value it's going to bring long term, and what types of project is it going to acquire and try to court, and that whether that's community led, which is never going to happen because there's no agreement around that, or if there's somebody going to step in that aspect, just continually upgrading and building new capabilities is not going to create that. Right. It's like there's plenty of vehicles for these situations out here in terms of what projects need. It's more of a business and financial need than it is a technology need. My 2 cents.
Yeah. I mean, I think they had the time to strike while the iron is hot. I think the iron is now cold.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's part of the challenge of Web3 is, well, maybe it's not different than Web2, but like, you get a lot of visibility for a very small attention span. And then once that is gone, it's really tough to bring that back, I think, especially when you have a price drop from $40 to 35 cents. Like, it's really hard to like say there's so many other opportunities like for execution level and for chains and for, now we have roll apps and all this other type of stuff coming. Like where are we going with this, or is it just miss its window? But anyway,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just it. I mean, I kind of spent a lot of time in startups, right? And I know you have as well, and other folks, in and around this podcast have too. Some of the best founding teams that I've worked for, I mean, to be fair, almost all the startups I've worked for have actually, in the end, made an exit of some kind, but not
Mhm.
all exits are made equal.
Yeah.
And I would say the most successful, as far as I can tell from the outside, like some of the maybe most good, like in terms of every person was like a very S tier person, and they kind of were pointing in the same direction. They're still beholden to market conditions, even in Web 2, right? I worked for a very good startup in the hospitality sector, like immediately before COVID, and that sector, just died on its ass overnight. Like, it was there one day and it wasn't there the next. So it doesn't matter how good your execution roadmap, leadership behaviors are in that situation. That's it. You're basically shuttering the staff and going into survival mode. But I guess there is kind of a minimum bar, isn't there, of a functioning team, like a functional team with a plan.
Well, and one thing that's different, I think, in Web3 than in traditional is it's very difficult for founders or those types of or individuals to exit with equity before their success. So usually those individuals are the last to get paid. Meaning you might have investors, or you might have employees that might have have options, or you might have other situations where if there's no exit, there's nothing that comes about of that. Typically in Web3, you have founders dumping, or you have founders creating equity during the rise of the valuation, which is typically not the case. Like, they need an exit to get paid, not just, hey, as we.
And
we have,
and there might not be a
they might have
second payday either.
There might not be, because in a regular situation, you might have a huge valuation, but then it goes to shit, and you're left with nothing, even though
Well,
you're paying employees.
you even see that with dApps, which is what we saw with launching a dApp on Juno. Like, we were one of the first to get to market on Juno, which is good for us. We did make some money, but then there was no more money.
Right. Yeah.
And we burnt through a big portion of that, doing the HAL stuff, which then never made any money. And you're just like, okay, well, actually, the reason I brought up taxes earlier was less about warning all of our British listeners to do their taxes, and more that, to say mea culpa. And I know I've said this before, that, you guys were right on the AWS stuff. There's a time and a place, and probably this was not the place. But we had to have a debrief, like, with the finance people before they submitted it. Just go through like the final high level line by line and say, do these numbers look reasonable?
Is there nothing cheaper?
Here's our rationale. And that was the conversation. They sort of said, look, here's your incoming. You could have had a pretty stable, normal year,
right?
For a business that's got only one full-time employee and a few contractors. But look, some of these loss events that are caused by essentially spending a huge amount on infrastructure, which probably could be done more cheaply, has turned what would have been maybe an okay year into a bad year. Like, and it was, there are other ways of making that money, basically, that don't involve working 7 days a week. And it was really interesting, actually. I think when you're in it, and especially when we've talked about burnout, stuff like this in the past, and decision making when you're burnt out before. I think I went through a very long period of that. And it's quite embarrassing, is maybe a bit of a strong word, but when you have somebody who's outside your business look at your numbers, and then just look at your management decision making for that 1 year period, and say, look, you would have had an okay year, instead you had a bad year, And fundamentally, from a financial perspective, you made bad decisions. That's just in black and white here. You know, you came out of it with more money at the end of the year than you had at the beginning of the year, but not much. And
Is it
to be honest, you were not making hay while there was any sunlight. You know, no matter what market conditions were like. And I think it was a real. I don't know. I've been thinking about it. You know, this is only obviously for the last few days, these conversations, but it's very interesting to just have somebody out and out say to your face, "You had a bad year," and you're like, "But I worked 7 days a week. How could I have had a bad year?"
if trying to relate it back, would it be something like
Work smart.
is this something like that? Is that kind of
That is, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's exactly the thing. You know,
That's
you've talked about it
2023.
before, right? And
Yeah, yeah.
I just talked about it before about trying to work smarter.
just
And I
walking
think
into rakes for a whole year? Yeah.
But you know, we've also talked about this in the context of marketing or going to conferences. You know, it's also in what we do here. It's very, very hard to work out any kind of perspective, any kind of model for prospective return, and where you should put additional energy to grow the business. And I think that's how you can end up working 7 days a week, and then 18 months later have somebody who's kind of tangentially involved in your business say, "Well, you had a bad year." And
Yeah.
you're like, "But I worked really hard."
Yeah.
Or I feel like I did.
Well, I mean, we've always said this business can be a little bit casino-ish, where you put a lot of bets, and your bets are both effort and time and resource, right? Whether that resource be liquid like cash, or your time, or your team's time, or something else, right? And some of those pay off and some of those don't, and there's only so many bets you can place, right? And so and some of those bets are within your control, and I would think in this case there's a lot of things that are outside of your control, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't, right? And I think the value of being being the Figments or whatever else at that point is they place so many fucking bets that that you need to have less wins. I mean, your percentage we can have the same percentage, but from their perspective, they're going to have, since they're placing more bets, that percentage is higher, and so therefore you're going to have a higher return. And so when you're a small validator, I think, or a small node operator, and you're trying to focus on where you're going to spend your time, like I know me, like I know where I spend my time, on what chains we do it. And usually that's not even based off of, honestly, that's even not based off of market. It's not usually based off of technology. It's usually based off the team. Like, do I like the people, and can I work with the people on the other end of this? And do I believe that they are not full of shit? That's usually where it is. And honestly, to get to that point takes a long fucking time. Like it's not something like you figure out in a week. Like it takes months, right? Before you realize like this team doesn't know what the fuck they're doing, right? And even like first, yeah, well, even like first perceptions are usually wrong too, because you're like, either some teams you're like, well, this team has their shit together, and you look at them like 2 months later, you're like, what the fuck is this? Or other ones you're like, these guys don't know what the hell they're doing, and you come back and then then they're totally a well-oiled machine, and so it's a tough business, man. Like it's tough to build repeatability in here.
Well, I mean, but they might know what they're doing in some respects, and then other things they're just like, what the fuck? Like,
correct.
You know,
I don't mean technically. I mean like, how do you build a product, right? Like, how do you build something that really works?
We'll say at their launch had a great technical team. Like their guys that were building the chain were great, right?
Yeah.
And good to work with. And then, but like the launch obviously was terrible, and they didn't have either the right people, or enough of the right people, or the right mix of people to sort of make it a overwhelming success. But I mean, that's not uncommon either. There's so many launches that just don't go great.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's because they just hype the shit out of before they do something as well.
Or it could be like
underwhelming or whatever.
Or some tokenomics thing that they don't realize, or like something that they don't realize how large of a deal it is, and it turns into this massive, or something, right?
Well,
or
the DYD
add RPC nodes, right? Like shit like that.
They didn't realize that it might be a problem that one of the validators had over 33.4% of voting power.
Yeah, right.
Or that it might have been a problem that they didn't realize that just some whale might go, well, fuck it, I'm not parting with 5%, and
Yeah, exactly.
put up a validator and just own the network all of a
Right.
sudden.
At 100%. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
but I mean, and fuck accountants and their viewpoints on your business too. Like it's not,
Oh, no,
they're not,
they weren't being like rude about it. They were just sort of looking at the raw numbers. And what was funny is that they thought I knew, right?
knew what?
Well, they thought I knew that I'd had a bad year, so they were
And they're like,
saying,
"Oh, bad year," and you're like, "What?"
"Well, no." So this is no. This was it.
You
They,
got
they
like
only said that.
it was like a Rolls Royce product parked out front. You got a crown on your head. You're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it
They're
was
like-
very Homer Simpson because they basically they open with saying that because they were like, but look at all the positives, you know, that you got a nice new desk on your asset sheet.
Nice dude, that's
The phrase slides the Lamborghini color selection book under the bed with his foot.
so they were basically
Leaning
being
back.
like, in spite of it being a bad year, like there's a lot of reasons to think that, you know, the company's in a solid place, and we know that, you know, the year after that is a bit more solid, the year that we're currently going through, because you've made some changes, you've reduced your costs, you know. So in a lot of ways we need to think of this as an adjustment year. And I was just like, wait, back up a second.
wait.
Bad year? And they're like, well, but it's all on the balance sheet. I'm like looking through it like an idiot, being like, yes, I see the like it was very
Yes.
Homer Simpson. I was like, yes, Poindexter's. I see the no. So, but yeah, it took me a second to be like, oh no, this has actually not been our finest hour.
You know, Def name the fray. The top row here, the top shelf. We both lost money last year. I think the bottom shelf here is they made profits. So I feel your pain, but I knew I was losing money the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, the surprising thing is obviously that although the first few months of Aptos, the token price was low, the cost of running was pretty high, and we also had incurred all the costs of the test nets before it launched and everything. Again, like it's so easy to spend. I know this. Okay, should the fray even be in business with what he's about to say? It's very easy to spend money, and sometimes it's quite hard to keep a track on what every budget line was expended against until you get right to the end, to literally the report I was given 3 days ago, and go, huh, that was the cost of actually running all that, acquiring that client, getting on that network, getting on mainnet, running it for the first 5 months.
I think that's tough too, because I try not to budget or be able to identify profitability at a chain level. I really try not to.
It's more of
like
a
I
group
know
level, right? Like
more of a group level, or like I have groups of like either validator operations or like, you know, RPC or other types of things, right? Like I know what those are at a high level, but I try to do it at chain level, because then it becomes really difficult to then to. I mean, it's good. I guess it's good. I guess it'd be good to look at it and say, this is worthwhile or not worthwhile. I'm spending this much on this for this long, and is that return going to be there? Which I have in my head, but it's tough to look at and be able to be really that level of detail, because also, like, a lot of times you run nodes for multiple different chains at once, so it's difficult to break that out. But I mean, and honestly, the hardware side is really not a big of a deal. It just be, I know you have some people cost too, which is different. Like people cost is really where that gets really expensive.
we definitely don't break down like costs by network or even by division. Like, you know, our RPC services division is same thing as the validators division. The income from both are broken into separate lines, but all the costs are the same.
Yeah, they're all cogs, right? Like, so they're all cost of goods.
They're all cost of goods. Yeah, it's like fucking.
So that, and it's tough to break that out, but I assume I could. It's really like a lack of. I mean, do I know that the contract is covering those costs, and I have an understanding of that margin? I think the answer to that is yes. And then in the grand scheme of things, do I really need to care?
We have different types of cost of goods broken down. So like colo is separate to, you know, cloud is separate to, you know, routing and DNS and that type of stuff. We sort of break those down, and then you've got all of your like business expenses, like Xero and Google and fucking, I don't know, Discord or whatever the fuck else we pay for. There's like so many of those things. They just get all chucked in a subscriptions line. But we break that stuff down to get a better idea of where our money's going. But in terms of like actually trying to figure out what to attribute that to, we don't bother.
I don't know if that would be a good. I don't know if that'd be a good exercise or just make me sad.
Yeah, like